Hello, this is George Senda, the real, official, authentic, original, one and only the guy from Pittsburgh. And I listened with interest on parts one and two of an interview with George Noory where he talks about the major media discussing UFOs. And then in the second part, he talks about disclosure, how some scientists are now studying the field and how the paranormal topic is burgeoning. Well, I maintain that George Noory is wrong for a number of reasons. I just posted a video of a 2005 Peter Jennings report, UFO'S Seeing is Believing. Now, instead of being an objective report in its totality, this was not an objective report. Art Bell appears on the program, the late Art Bell. It wound up taking the side of the debunkers, as did a white paper on UFOs on NBC and ones on CBS. I do not know about PBS. There was no Fox back then, I think. And the only broadcaster on a major television network that ever treated the subject fairly in recent years was Larry King, as he did on Mutual. Now, on terrestrial radio, as Art Bell used to say, Ira Blue, Art Bell, God, I'm losing it here. Just a minute. Ira Blue, Art Bell, Frank Edwards, see who else? Long John Neville, and others treated the subject fairly. But still to this day, there is the ha 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 factor when UFOs is discussed. Peter Jennings couldn't even get the idea right of how many UFO conventions there are in the country. There are not hundreds. It's maybe less than a couple of dozen, if that. They're not all over the country. If you go to the annual list of UFO conventions, UFO meetings, and UFO events, it's maybe 20 or 25 or 30 at best. Now, I don't know about England and Europe. I know there are events there, but I don't go look at those because there's no way I'm going to get to England and Europe unless I win the lotto. But every time the subject is discussed, if you look at Storm Area 51, now Channel 8 in Las Vegas with George Knapp, discussed it fairly to a great extent, and I commend them for that. But usually and that's the same with science fiction conventions, comic conventions, anything having to do with the paranormal, look at the nuts. And George, the title of the one video said George Noory is happy that the other media are now covering UFOs. Yeah, but they're still covering it as if everybody who is a believer or an experiencer is insane or a fool or a subject of ridicule. No network is going to come out and say these people have veracity, are telling the truth, or treat the subject fairly. Now, I have a feeling that we more likely see what we saw in the show Dark Skies, where Majestic 12, and if the Majestic 12 does not exist, then there's some government entity that tells the networks and other media, you cannot treat the subject objectively. You have to ridicule it. The people do not have the right to know what we're doing if UFOs do exist, if the government has crashed UFOs and occupants, or the other side of the coin, the government has created their own flying craft that people are seeing and they think it's UFOs. Because we never see the subject on local stations, nationwide stations, talk radio, and I'm excluding coast to coast AM, treated fairly. and I have a list in the commentary on that Peter Jennings report. I remember watching that, and I get so disgusted with the skeptics. I guess the only way a skeptic is going to admit the reality of UFOs, contact, close encounters of the fourth kind, if a UFO falls on top of him, and then he'll claim it was a rock or something. They are constantly in denial, no matter how many reports you have, no matter how many expert witnesses you have, from doctors to policemen to airmen to pilots to scientists, all of whom have seen UFOs. So that's one. And then I think George Noory also said that the subject is burgeoning. There's more and more paranormal shows out there and more and more interest. He's right, but I personally think that George Noory's show, Coast to Coast AM, has suppressed any broadcaster from doing a show on the paranormal. I'm not talking about podcasts. I'm not talking about so-called radio stations on the internet that are not real radio stations that have a list of podcasters. But I'm talking about actually broadcasts on AM and FM. I looked up a list of talk show hosts. There's only 3. And this is a huge list, living and dead. Frank Edwards was not on there, sadly. He should have been. He was a mutual radio host. And the stress from him working with Donald Keogh and other people to fight UFO secrecy from the Air Force and the federal government probably caused his fatal heart attack. I cannot find any paranormal broadcasters in the list from A to Z, except for George Noory, the late Art Bell, and George Knapp. They aren't out there. And even George Noory, that says he has a huge audience now, people flock to him. I don't know his listenership or whatever. And in a sense, I don't care. But his other activities, his constant self-promotion, we are friends. I'm not criticizing him for that, mind you. But his self-promotion, his tours around the country, he has nobody out there that has a radio program because he has precluded anybody from coming up because the networks probably figure he's got the market locked up. There's no point in putting paranormal or a UFO show or conspiracy show out there on the air. And yes, I know most people are listening to things on tablets and their iPhones and their Android phones and their iPads, but nobody's out there, and nobody will be. We're not going to have disclosure. He said that Edgar Mitchell and other people will say, I saw a UFO, or this happened on the Apollo mission, or it landed in the Holloman Air Force Base. But until we have an official government source say, yes, they're here, we're never going to get the closure. Now, a former Canadian defense official admitted they were there. But the Canadian government hasn't. The British government hasn't. And no matter how much Nick Pope goes on the air, the British government would never admit that they exist or not. Because there is an effort to not tell people. Even if if you have a president friendly to UFOs like Bill Clinton, they're not allowed to say anything. And there's dozens of podcasters out there doing UFOs and the paranormal and Slender Man and Bigfoot. But the entire subject by the corporations that control all the mainstream television and radio networks is taboo. And George Noory is wrong. Podcasts are not broadcasts. They're on the internet. And all of that is overlooked by the powers that be that may or may not be part of the deep state. and for all I know, part of Majestic 12 or a similar organization. All right, I hope you all had a great Christmas. I was going to go out to a free Christmas dinner. I woke up at the ungodly hour for me of 6 a.m., did checking on my email, wrote down my NFL picks, went out and put my garbage down the chute and my giant, I had a huge bag of recycling, and my right foot, my bad right knee, and my back, and the rest of my body said, "You're not going anywhere today." I was in pain all day. So. And I didn't go to free Thanksgiving dinner. And the other thing is, they were going to take in a bus to a church up the road. I'm not sure where the church it was or is. And I don't know when they would have taken me back. And I was feeling so horrible that I'm going like, I would want to go home now, not when they decide after 3 or 4 hours to take me home. I would have been in agony. That's also why I'm doing this late and didn't wish people very Merry Christmas earlier, because I was feeling horrible all day. I wasn't sick. It just everything in my body ached. My hair hurt. I mean, it was that bad. All right. This is George Senda, the guy from Pittsburgh. I hope you had a happy celebration. I hope you got lots of presents. I hope you attended the services of your choice and you were with your family and friends. I wished my sister a Merry Christmas. She had family dinner yesterday with the rest of the family, so that kind of sucked. I didn't get to talk to the rest of them. And it's crazy. The weather in Pittsburgh is warmer than here. We're going to be down to 35 on Friday. And for the San Francisco Bay Area to be close to freezing is insane. And we're getting 30-mile-an-hour winds off the bay here. I went out to leave cat food for the cats, and it is... I just ran right back in. I said, God, it's cold. And I got to go out and feed the cats. I'm very late on cat feed. So, but when Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is warmer than Martinez, California, that's crazy. My sister said it was foggy and 50. And it was 51 here a couple of hours ago. Kathy is okay. Her cats are okay. My cats are okay. Fluffy is outside for now, but the minute he went out at one point, and literally I opened the door, Fluffy ran back in, ate something, and went to his kitty bed. He loves his kitty bed. And Fuzzy and Little Girl are fine. Little Girl is sleeping on the end of the bed. Here is Fuzzy. Here's Fuzzy. Here's my baby. Merry Christmas, Fuzzy. Yes, I already wished you Merry Christmas. And Mama Cat and Kitten Cat got wet food this morning at 8 o'clock, and they were very happy. All right. So, kitties are all fine. And I'm going to go out as soon as this video is done and go feed them, braving the frozen tundra that is Martinez. All right, this is George Senda, the guy from Pittsburgh. Have a great day, a great evening. Stay warm and dry. I'm not going to say wet and cool because I don't think anybody wants to be cool. And Direct Weather is already talking about a possible blizzard in the Midwest. So that's a guy on YouTube. Okay, and this is George Senda, the guy from Pittsburgh. Have a good night, and I have to go off and cat feed. But George Noory, I think, has kept anybody else from rising in the paranormal field on regular radio, anything that's not internet-based, and I don't think we're going to ever have another AM or FM radio show like Art Bell. And we could have a personality that would rise to be on radio. And some say radio is dead. I don't think it is. But I don't think podcast will ever replace radio broadcasting in the near future. Because even Sirius Radio is in cars, but you don't get the same hesitate use this word gravitas with regular radio. Okay, bye bye for now.